kick the. Okay, great. Okay, so calling the December 16th meeting of the IT Advisory Committee to order. Welcome everyone, and we may pick up one or two members as the meeting goes on. First order of business is approving the minutes from our November meeting. I can bring those up on the screen if that would be easier for people.
Sure.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Here, I'll blow it up a little bit if it's easier. Okay. So this is from our meeting last month. I read through it and didn't see anything. We did do the adopting the old, the missing meeting so we can get up to date. Dave, are we all set with the town clerk's office?
As far as I know, we're all set. Yeah, I submitted everything. Everything seemed to have been accepted, and so I'm pretty sure that was it.
Great. Charlie, you said you had a couple small grammatical corrections.
Yeah, it's in the paragraph just below that one that you have up. Just go down one more paragraph. Okay. All right, in the first line of that paragraph.
It should be allow.
Allow or to permit, yeah.
Yeah, to allow. Okay, fixed.
I would suggest that after the phrase committee meetings, that you put in a comma and then add a word like something. See that?
Deliberation and committee meeting. So that one.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So, yeah, right.
Just
to separate what we voted to do. I actually, yeah.
Just reads better. So
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Charlie. So what I've written here is Paul Roberts raised the topic of the op-ed urging the select board to vote to allow remote deliberation committee meetings, something that ITAC voted to do at the 28 October 2021 meeting.
Yes,
Paul brought
that's
up
right.
a new draft as he received some feedback. We made changes to address those concerns and finished it. Yeah.
Just a small word change. Instead of something,
Yeah.
we could say as we.
Okay, as
That's
ITAC
fair.
voted to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Got it. Got it.
Do you also want to add a new draft of the op-ed for review? And he received some feedback?
Sure.
Something like that.
To make all the verbs agree, as he had received some feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay.
No, I'm basically the sentence Paul. It's gone by.
Sorry.
Okay. Are you able to make this in real time, Dave? So that
Yes, I'm making these changes in real time. Paul, you want me to share mine?
Sure.
Yeah, that would help.
Oh, Phil Lawrence is here as well. Sorry. Stop here. And
Hang on 1 second. Let me.
okay. You should be good to go, Dave.
Okay. Let me just add Phil to the attendance for tonight.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Phil.
Hey,
How you
Phil.
doing?
Good. Dealing with Log4j.
Yeah, isn't everybody?
Yep.
Is
Yeah, not fun.
it everywhere? Are you playing whack-a-mole?
Yeah, I mean, having to stage the response and a lot of different undesirable things.
Are you guys seeing it now?
Yeah,
Yes.
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay. So you can see I've made the changes. This is the paragraph we're working on.
okay, let's see. So Paul brought up a new draft of the op-ed for review. And he
No, the
received,
reason he brought it up was because he had received the feedback.
oh, all right, okay,
It's not an and.
okay, got it.
As he had received some feedback, we made some changes to address those concerns. Dave Goldberg made a motion to adopt and send in the amended version of the op-ed.
Yeah,
That's good.
okay, that's all right.
Motion carried. Paul reported that he sent the earlier version of the op-ed to the select board and received an answer that suggests that the board does not see it as a priority. Paul will submit the op-ed to the Belmont Citizen Herald for publication. Paul brought up coordination with structural change impact group, CIG. Paul Roberts, Dave Goldberg, representing ITAC, November 5th, the CIG meeting. Dave Goldberg contact Dave Pettas, potential for improved use of Munis. Yep. Dave and I have an update on that. Report of the most recent website renewal committee meeting. They saw a presentation from Granicus. Yep. I have an update on that. Next meeting planned for Thursday, 16 December. Okay. I think that looks good to me. Somebody want to make a motion to adopt these minutes?
I so make a motion to adopt the minutes.
Second. Okay,
Second.
let's just go Glenn Wong.
Aye.
Jim Barretts,
Gonna abstain since I wasn't at the last meeting.
Mr. Lawrence,
Same here. I'll abstain.
Dan,
Aye.
Charlie,
Aye,
Paul, I, Mr. Goldberg.
I think I need to vote yes
I think
this
you need
time. Let's say yes.
Okay, the motion is the minutes are adopted. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Next order of business, public comments. I do not see anybody in the meeting, so we can move along. For a discussion of the structural impact group coordination meeting with Dave Petto and Steve Mazzola, which Dave and I did last week, to talk about one issue that's come up in conversations with the structural change impact group, which is software licensing and whether the town has a is tracking what software it's using with an eye to obviously streamlining and simplifying, software licensing and other stuff. So I know this is a topic that ITAC has taken up on numerous occasions. And so Dave and I had a Zoom meeting with Steve and Dave Petto to discuss it. Dave, do you want to kind of give your take on that?
Yeah, hang on a second. Let me bring up my notes so I can remember them. So yeah, so we talked a lot about software in general. In particular, we started out with the concept of inventory. Do they know what they have and whether they're using it? And the answer is each individual group pretty much has some reasonable level of inventory. It may not get down to the level that you might have in a compliant environment where every single file in the Microsoft setup is very closely tracked, although some of their security software may cover things that way, sort of under the hood. But in terms of what they buy and what they allow on the systems, they pretty much do. there are situations, as Steve pointed out, with the iPads where, everybody has an Apple ID and they don't do a whole lot of policing. There's a few blacklisted things, but for the most part, if people want to download a free app, they're able to do that. I think Dave obviously has a lot more control over that, but nothing that requires payment. Anything that requires payment is under either Dave's control or Steve's control, or in the case of police, I assume Steve's has something to say about that, or Robin in the case of the light department. And the inventories they have are focused on licensed software and what they're paying for. And, you could probably go deeper than that, than what they have with the financial systems if you wanted to get a whole of town view, because everybody buys through the town ultimately, with the possible exception of Steve. I don't know how that all plays out, in terms of the mechanics, but if we wanted to build some kind of a dashboard, that's a more complicated thing. Right now it's department by department, although Dave covers an awful lot of departments, right? Anything in the town is under his purview. So it's not like you have to go to the HR department head to find out what software they're using. Dave knows that.
And is there a central purchasing such that you could kind of look at all of the purchasing?
That's what I said. Yes. Yeah. So you could look through the purchasing if you wanted to try to get a whole of town view. The problem you're going to have there, as they pointed out, is when you purchase software in any given year, SKU numbers might change, and so there may, it's not going to be necessarily what you really think you're looking for.
Yeah, right.
Depending on your reason for looking. The other thing that came up in the purchase process is one of the questions they had was, would it make sense for us to combine purchases across the town? And it turns out the answer is, well, maybe under the stuff that Dave is responsible for, there would be, if there were a lot of stuff in, say, police or light department that is getting done outside of his purview and perhaps should be consolidated. But the schools are on a different purchasing schedule, because educational licensing is, legally and contractually done differently, and is generally able to get better pricing than municipality. Now, if they wanted to shoot themselves in the foot, we could have the schools buy through the town and spend more money. But if we wanted people to go to jail, we could ask Dave to try to, get municipal licenses through the school. So I won't put that in the minutes, but it's on the recording. That was a joke. That's just the reality. That's the reason why Steve buys Microsoft separately from the town's procurement. It just doesn't make sense for the school to pass up what it can get through the educational licensing, which is negotiated through, I gather, through the state. So what else came up? One of the big questions they asked was about the ERP systems. Why do we have an ERP system in the light department and an ERP system for the rest of the town? And I think we already knew this from our discussions with Robin when they were first buying the thing. The NISCD, I think it is, or something like that. And that is basically, Munis is not designed for utility billing. And as far as we can tell, it still isn't designed for utility billing. And the other thing is not designed to operate an entire town. So there's a pretty good reason to keep those things separate. That's just the products. We're not talking about network architecture or anything like that. Here, that's a whole nother topic, and really SCIG hasn't taken too much of a look at that. That's more of our issue. And but then I asked the question, so with respect to Munis, are there town processes that are, being done in, old spreadsheet based ways that could be streamlined if we took advantage of Munis? And the answer was yes, absolutely, but Dave can't do anything about it because that's not Dave's authority. Munis is actually owned by, what did he say, the finance, accounting, and HR departments. Dave just operates it for them. So if there's going to be a suggestion to migrate a town process from whatever they're doing to, buy another license component for Munis, that's not Dave's decision. Dave will be the implementer, but that's a business decision that has to go through, the town administrator and the select board and those department heads that I mentioned before, because they're the ones who have that authority. So that's what, at some point, Paul, I have a question for you, is what's the best way to get this back to the SCIG? I could either, I don't mind emailing them my notes. I don't, or we could, try to get one of them here next month, or I could go to one of their upcoming meetings. That, whatever works is fine, but I don't have the contacts there.
Dave, do you happen to know if those groups that you mentioned a minute ago regularly or irregularly look for opportunities for automating processes? Did that come up in the conversation?
It did not.
Yeah, we didn't really ask that. It's a good question.
That is a good question. I also suspect that that's probably a question more for a town administrator than for Dave or anything like that.
Yeah, I thought he might know.
And of course, and did she get the job in Reading? I hadn't heard. No,
She did not.
Okay.
So Patrice is staying, at least for now. I think any of those options, Dave, are viable. We could take your notes and turn it into more of a written report back to them on, our conversation, and maybe start there and say, if you want to, if you have questions on this or want to follow up by meeting with our committee or having some of us come to you, we're happy to do that. But, kind of here's what we learned from the IT heads from the town schools. Here's some other areas of, possible inquiry or investigation, but here's basically where things stand right now.
Okay. So I'm happy to do that. The only thing I need from you is contact info.
Yeah, I have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have it buried in email somewhere, but I never managed to pull any of it into my contact list. So.
I will share that with you. Okay.
Okay.
And
then I'll send them an email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to send them an email. Do we need to vote for me to do that? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
All you're doing is, in my opinion, communicating information.
Yeah.
Not making
Right.
a decision per se.
Yeah, I think I think Dave, thank you. That was a really excellent, kind of summation of what we talked about. Some ways it was a conversation that I feel like I've had before, and I think that I think that there are clearly reasons why school and town, maybe need separate IT functions, whether they could be consolidated under a town-wide IT department is another question. I think they probably could, and I don't think that would necessarily jeopardize licensing. School district's going to keep being a school district. Obviously, as we know, within recent memory, the light department was under the town's IT department and then broke out to become its own IT department. I think a lot of us wonder why the police and fire departments and the library have their own technically separate IT functions, when it seems likely that they would be better served under Dave's leadership. Especially, I hate to bring it back up again, but looking at the continuing problems with email bounces from the police department, that is still not resolved. Emails are still bouncing with a high rate of frequency from our police department because of their Barracuda anti-spam filter or firewall or whatever. you know, I feel pretty confident Dave Petto would have that problem ironed out if it were on his agenda, but he doesn't have that authority. So, you know, I kind of feel like in some ways this is the wrong question to ask. I think the answer is would we have better and more efficient IT function with consolidated townwide IT department and a single leader of that department? I think the answer is yes, absolutely. Would we save money and reduce, you know, duplicative efforts and licensing? Probably. But
I don't
the
know that
town
we'd
doesn't.
save, I'm not convinced we'd save money on it. I wouldn't want to promise that. I think what we would be,
Yeah.
I think the promise is that it would better allow us to deal with problems. And because that was actually one of the other questions that came up was the IT staff. So school has 11, town has 5, light department has 1, police has 1, library has 3. So combining those 5, you know, those into the town into 10 with appropriate people dedicated to, you know, what they're needed for, would means that you'd have an automatic more backup for the 2 organizations that only have 1. I noticed he didn't say fire department had anybody, but I think that's probably accurate. My sense is that the fire department's quote unquote IT is their communications and their radios. And I think it's probably sensible to leave that as it is.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I look at things like managed service, you know, agreements and you know, the kind of profusion of different managed service providers that we have across the town for you know, multiple different IT departments, and then you look at things like, you know, shared you know, hosting and stuff, and I do think there are probably efficiencies that we could be gaining if we just, you know, consolidated all that, but I don't know, nobody's done that analysis.
Right.
Well,
I
and
think the question is a
consolidation can
bigger
be-
question, which is, does Belmont want to have a centralized top-down town government that could support a town-wide IT function? And I think the answer, at least for right now, is it does not. This is you know, the operation of this town is as fiefdoms and decentralized decision-making and committees. And I think IT is just one manifestation of that, you know, and you know, it's kind of silly to talk about an centralized IT function when we really don't even have a centralized executive function in this town.
Right.
So.
Well, I don't completely agree with that statement, but I want to go back to something that I tried to bring up earlier, which is that even though there may be some considerable savings in consolidation in the long term, in the short term, it can be expensive and very disruptive to, you know, say, okay, well, you know, you've been using this package in the library, just to use them as an example, but we're not going to use it anymore. We're going to use the same package that they use in this other department. And, you know, the migration cost it's not free. There's a lot of training involved. There's maybe new equipment necessary, new software. Because when you give back the old software, you don't get your money back. So the effort and money required to chop over to a new consolidated system, which might pay dividends over the course of, you know, many years, could be a considerable fraction of the budgets of each one of these groups. So
yeah,
you know,
could be
maybe a phased consolidation. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I think consolidation has always been a sort of, you know, you know, I think people have chased after it as a possible source of, you know, enormous cost savings for the town. It would seem to make sense intuitively that consolidating things would reduce your costs. I'm with Dave, and I think Dan as well. I'm not actually sure that at the end of the day, we'd end up spending less on IT with a consolidated IT function. But I do feel like we might get better results and have a more consistent experience across the town. And again, Belmont Police Department, you know, bouncing every Gmail message that comes to them for months on end. I mean, it's been more than 8 months now that this has been going on, unable to address that problem. You know, like clearly just doesn't, like, does not have the capability internally to troubleshoot and fix that problem on their own. And they're waiting for someone else to do it for them. You know, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. And I just feel like if there were a top, you know, Dave Petto, for example, were in charge of IT for everything, he would have solved that problem a long time ago. And what other kind of similar, maybe less noisy lapses or gaps in terms of skills, capabilities, you know, responsiveness are out there? It's really hard to know. You know, you don't recognize them until you kind of trip over the body. So, you know, I'm
wondering if there wasn't a form of an SLA around, you know, software maintenance. Not, I mean, we have one around network maintenance and shared responsibilities and all these kind of things. I wonder if there's some form of a, you know, a townwide software licensing and maintenance SLA that we you know, just distribute competency. I mean, to your point about the red flag at the police department, are there services that can be shared throughout the town that would help address those kind of things? I don't know. I haven't seen. I haven't. You know. I haven't seen those kinds of SLAs. I've seen them more at the sort of the network and maintenance and that kind of level. But I don't know. It has.
Yeah, and that actually came up. Dave was pretty clear. The SLA that we have now is about network operation, and you know, and some associated services that are, you know, are there. So, you know, the VMware and things like that are, you know, that's where their SLA goes to, and then, you know, above that, each department does its own thing.
Right. Just a thought. I mean,
so
you know, maybe there's
could it be
an
extended?
extension of
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Anyway.
And again, as we addressed in our you know, the report we made on the security matters, you know, it isn't just about efficiency. I do worry about the gaps at the edges around you know, different jurisdictions, you know, different silos, and the gaps that those create, and how those might be exploited. You know, where people can kind of look at it from a like, well, you know, we got our stuff locked down. You know, what's going on over there? I don't know. It's not my, you know, it's not my department. You know, that's not the way ransomware groups think or act, and that does.
Oh no, it is. They take advantage of it.
Well, right, yeah, no, right. I mean, I'm saying they don't say like, well, you know, it looks like the town stuff is locked down, we should just move on. I'll be like, oh well, let's go check out Belmont Light. Let's go check out, you know, the library. Like maybe, you know, weakest link, and see what we can do from there. You know.
Well, the library is a tough one. It's like the school, right? Because the library is not its own thing. It's on MinLib or whatever, that Minuteman network.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, we don't know what the rules are around that, but I don't know that but they're not going to come off of it.
No, I mean, I think, you know, listen, it's 2021. There are smart solutions for any of these problems if you want to investigate them and invest in them, right? You know, whether it's an availability problem, whether it's a security issue, whether it's a staffing issue, what have you, capabilities issue, you know, there's stuff out there for us. But I think right now what's really clear is, as with other things in our town, you know, IT functions more or less as a bunch of, you know, kind of silos or fiefdoms, and there isn't a lot of you know, coordination between them, and basically that's kind of, people are kind of happy with things that way. And you know, that's, you know, I do think that we're not going to see IT consolidation until we accept in the context of a larger kind of government reform. I don't see the government as a town government as is currently structured being able to pull off IT consolidation. But so in some ways this is, you know, I don't think the,
well, that's what the SCIG is supposed to do, right?
Well, they're really focused on kind of revenue and can we make changes to be more efficient and save revenue, and I don't know, maybe there's a piece about providing better services. Their mandate is also pretty clearly defined. I'm not sure their mandate is to recommend changes to the charter of the town, for example.
Okay.
But yeah, so no, I mean they're focused on trying to find savings and efficiencies, which is good. I'm not sure, based on what I've heard, that there are necessarily savings in IT consolidation. There may be efficiencies.
Right.
And I think for a lot of other reasons, there are a lot of other reasons to do it that are about neither efficiency nor savings. But as Dan said, it's not something you do lightly or undertake without a really clear kind of game plan of how you're going to do it.
Well, if this ever got to be a major issue, and you're sort of suggesting that right now it isn't, all right, there are towns out there that operate under a chief information officer, and then I'm sure there are other towns that operate the way we do. And it probably would, if the SCIG wanted to pursue this, then they probably should interview some towns like us and some towns that have moved probably from the situation we're in to a more centralized situation. I guess I sort of intuitively or emotionally always felt that having the schools be their own sort of IT district sort of made sense for a variety of reasons. Having the library, okay, they're on the Minuteman network, but that's not the only IT function, I would think, that concerns them.
Yeah.
And then you move over to the fire department. Fire department doesn't have the same type of confidentiality issue that the police department might. Why are they out there by themselves? And then you get over to the light department. And there you sort of have to wonder.
So again, Dave has said, I think fire department is really not, they don't have an IT staff.
Well,
They have their communications, right? Dave runs their IT, their computer systems.
Oh, does he? Okay.
That's from what
In
I can
essence,
tell.
yes.
Dave runs their computer systems. What they have separate is their radio stuff. And for that they have staff, for their communications. To me, that's a reasonable thing to keep separate because that's very specific to them.
Well, I didn't realize that they had called on Dave to run their computer systems. I didn't realize that.
As far as I can tell, that's what they do. He was very clear. The organizations with separate IT staff are police, light department, and library, and school, of course.
I had one question on that just came up. I was driving around town, and there are boxes that are fire alarm boxes, and
The old red ones.
Yeah, the old red ones. Number one, are they still hooked up? And if so, how are they operating? Who's maintaining them? And are they still functional as an alarm system?
I think the ones that still look like the pull boxes are still functioning, but I think a lot of them they've removed because they broke and just didn't replace them.
Got it. But
but they don't really use. I mean, people have mobile phones, cell phones now, and they just call 911.
Yeah, but if they're there and people expect them to work, and et cetera, are they tested? Are they, I don't know. I mean, if they're kind of just something that people might go to and expect something to happen and nothing does happen, should they be removed? I don't know. To me, it just seemed like kind of a.
Yeah, I mean, I remember that coming up when some years ago when Dave was talking about the GIS stuff, and that was one of the things they were doing was marking all of those. And at the time, one of the reasons they were doing that was so that they could go around and basically do some testing and remove the ones that that weren't working because they basically felt they didn't need to replace them. but
Right.
they weren't going to remove ones that were working because, you know, hey, give people another opportunity to report if there's a fire.
So, but it's not
Right.
the light department, it's the
So I
fire
have no idea.
department,
No, it's a fire
I think that
department.
was fire department. Yeah.
and they have
I've always
expertise.
thought that
Anyway.
those locations would be great places if the town ever wanted to look at like some kind of a kiosk
Yeah.
system, you know, or public information kiosks. Like you've got, those are all wired up where those things were, you know, like you could
Sure.
put kind of, you know, flat screen type kiosks at those places with, you know, public information.
Yeah.
But
Anyway.
Well, they-
yeah, now
tend
they're
to be in
mostly
kind
just
of random places though, like,
More,
you know,
more of just a curiosity, I think. But I mean, I'm wondering, you know, I was left kind of thinking, is just something that we want to weigh in on as to whether, you know, if these are kind of, false alarm systems, if they don't really work, if they're not maintained, you know what?
I don't think that they're being ignored. I do think the fire department keeps tabs on them and tests them periodically, as they do, obviously, the hydrants, to make sure they're working for just that reason, is that, you know, if they're there, people assume they work, and
Right.
you know, you really don't want to be wrong about that.
Right,
And they
exactly.
have been disappearing around town. I know just from running, I'm sure Phil, you've noticed too, a bunch of them have been kind of deadheaded.
Right.
Or removed, and so I'm guessing that, you know, as the equipment fails, they just are pulling them up or
Got it.
taking the box off them.
Got it.
And so the ones that still look like fireboxes, I'm assuming still work.
Yeah, I agree with Paul. I don't think that they would have one of those boxes out there that didn't work any more than they would, you know, have a fire hydrant that doesn't.
I, as I say, probably more of just a curiosity on my part, but I just maybe at some point would love to get an explanation of what's up with those things.
I remember I interviewed Angelo Ferenzi, the selectman, one time, and he was saying that he had a fire in his house, you know, not a tremendously long time ago, and he actually ran outside and pulled one of those boxes. That's how he got the fire department to come.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but
Okay. Yeah,
okay.
we should move on. We should move on, but yeah.
So next order of business is, sorry, one sec here. Tour of Belmont High School, but before that, I should probably just give a quick update on, we did have another meeting of the website renewal committee, so I should just give a little report out on that. And basically, we are getting ready to, with a goal of sometime in Q1, kind of make a report out to the select board on our findings, where our last meeting was a discussion of whether to simply vote that the town should contract with one of the two vendors who we interviewed, Civics Plus, which is our current website hosting company, or this company Granicus, which is another big one, or whether we should do a RFQ and basically get bids from those two companies and maybe any other company that might be, you know, approved by the state, and that's in that business. And we basically landed on the latter. Nobody felt so strongly that any of the vendors was a slam dunk, that they had pros and cons, and that it would be best for us to put together a recommendation that the town do an RFQ for, you know, a hosting company for its website, and lay out our, you know, requirements. And so that's what we're going to be getting to work on. Okay.
Okay.
There's some discussion about kind of the scope of the project and what we want to include in it and what we don't. I think people feel pretty strongly that, you know, we need better search functionality, that it needs to be better organized, that we would be great to have some, you know, integration potentially with some kind of a, not a 311 system, but kind of a, you know, some kind of an app for reporting problems and stuff like that. Both those vendors offer those things. So we're just trying to decide on what the scope of the RFQ will be.
And is that to say that we're not going to continue with the previous vendor?
Nope, not at all. in fact, may be the case that the town does stick with the existing vendor, but maybe upgrades our package with them to take advantage of some of the other features that they offer. I think it just means that neither of the vendors was such a clear slam dunk in terms of their presentation that we felt like there was no need to entertain the idea of switching providers. I think we all felt like, potentially there could be. We just need to take a look at the proposal.
What do they have as the existing contractual relationship with Civics Plus? Is it an annual subscription, or is it something?
It is, and I think we're grandfathered in under a. We were originally, I think, Town Online was the name of the vendor that we used, and they got acquired by Civics Plus. So we have a grandfathered package. I'm not exactly sure how it aligns with what they offer now, but I think we're kind of coasting by on a somewhat on a hosting package that's probably a little bit long in the tooth. So pretty much no matter what we want to do, unless it was just status quo and change nothing, which is definitely not going to happen, we're going to need to change our subscription level with Civics Plus. So given that, I think we felt like it was worthwhile, kind of opening up the lens a little bit and considering some other providers as well.
But in other words, we're not locked into a long-term contract at this point.
Nope. I don't know if it's annual or if we're paying month to month with them, but it's certainly, we're not contractually obligated to stay with them. We could change it anytime. Yeah. So that's that. It's been an interesting committee. I think we've taken a look at a lot of municipal websites and seen a pretty wide range of what communities out there are doing, including here in the Bay State. So stay tuned. So last order, well, not last order, but penultimate item on our agenda is to talk about our visit to Belmont High School tomorrow morning. Glenn, I will let you take the lead on that.
Sure. So, I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot, unless folks want to have a preset agenda, but this is just the follow-up to Steve Mazzola's offer to show us around the new building. So the best time that seemed appropriate and convenient for most of the people, including Steve, obviously, was tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if you did not see that email, I think most of you replied. Looks like we've got, maybe 5 definites and a handful of maybes. So it'll be at least a majority, I think, of the group. Just a reminder, the plan is to meet at 10 a.m. At the main office. I'm not quite sure where the main office is, but I assume we'll figure that out once we get there. And I've been in the school once or twice for some concerts and stuff, and it's pretty amazing. So, but I've only seen probably within about 100 feet of the main entrance. So, yeah.
Now,
and
is there no parking? I know the access to the parking lot is limited. Are we going to have to park and walk down there, or?
I didn't ask. I'm assuming if you can't find parking inside the lot, because they limit students from going into the lot, but I mean, we were visitors, so I'm sure they've got a few visitor spots.
Probably visitor parking, if I had to guess.
Yeah. So I would try. My suggestion is go straight in. If you don't see anything, then yeah, you might have to go into the street. I do have calls right before and right after this thing, so I may be literally walking in, holding a phone and talking right until 10 a.m. So apologies in advance for multitasking.
Oh, Glenn, so important.
I've got a question for those of you who may still have students at the school. Do you know if there are any limitations on parking on the side streets if we have to do that? Or is it no?
I have no idea.
Well, I mean, I think if there is, they have signs up. I don't think you don't have to worry about being surprised. I mean, I think most of the students are parking on Concord Ave and Godin, maybe. I definitely see kids, because I run this route. I see kids parking up on Orchard Street in that little that little circle area there.
Mhm.
I don't think they get ticketed or anything. So, and then there's always the lot in front of the Underwood pool. That's probably good, or the library, obviously, if you
Oh,
want to
yeah,
walk a little
of
bit.
course.
Yeah,
sure.
those are, yeah. So, or even that little pull in, although that's probably taken by staff, if I had to guess, a little pull in by the big Rollo rink. Yeah, I don't think it'll be too hard to find parking somewhere
There
around
is, I've walked around the outside of the building as much as you can, and there are a few visitor parking spots,
Yeah,
but there are only a few, just a
Yeah.
few,
mostly to pick up your delinquent kid.
if you got one.
You got one, right? Well, I'm looking forward to it, Glenn. Thanks for arranging
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
I actually have not been in the building yet, so this is gonna be my first
Yeah,
visit.
me either. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
My son's jealous.
Only thing left, I mean, is there other business, airing of grievances, feats of strength, that type of thing?
I just have one question of Glenn regarding the tour. Glenn, is Steve planning to give us sort of what I would call a tour of everything, or just a tour of the IT function there?
I think a tour of everything.
Everything? Good.
That was my understanding when he offered. So we haven't discussed any more details other than show up and meet at the main office. But
Okay.
I think
Yeah,
we
I
get
think
into
it
the
would be-
special
yeah.
VIP areas too.
You mean
well,
the
the things hopefully we'll get to see. There's a few highlights that I'd probably point out in advance just to preview. But I've had a chance to go into the main auditorium, which is very impressive. There's also because there's a balcony now, so it's 2-tier. But I think the capacity is about the same as the old one. Then there's also not quite next to it maybe, but quite near it, is a small venue, sort of like I think they call it the Black Box, which is small venue theater, for small shows and stuff. So the recent, what was it, The Servant of Two Masters was performed there, and that was again a great venue. A lot, all fully rigged up with lights and stuff, and for theater productions. But the seats are, you sit on 3 sides, if you can imagine it. So it's sort of a
nice.
square area.
Really cool.
And there's only like 3 to 5 risers up, right? So it's not very deep.
So
but very cool. Yeah, very
Yeah.
cool space. And then you'll see, and as Steve mentioned this during his overview, but you'll see in the sort of open areas like the lobby, quote unquote, there's a lot of open seating areas with PowerPoints or power outlets and chairs and tables. So a lot of collaborative space. The one sort of concern that my kids have raised, and we may see this depending on the timing, is that there's sort of one main staircase right in the middle, and then there's some off on the ends. It tends
Nobody
to be
uses the
that,
ones on the ends.
right, exactly. So everyone funnels through the middle staircases, which creates quite a large bottleneck during
I've
time
heard that
between classes.
my daughter says that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that will change when the 7-8 wing opens, if there will be, but she seems to think not. But yeah, she's mentioned that as a limit, as a design flaw as well. I wouldn't mind seeing the power plant too, given that kind of it's a really interesting, kind of zero carbon building. So
right. So one of the things we've seen, because I've done some parent teacher conferences too, as part of the green design of the building, all the lights are on motion sensitive timers, right? So it's what it's great because it means it just reduces power consumption when it's not needed. But the funny part is when you're talking with a teacher and they're basically standing
the
still and
lights
there's
go
no
out.
motion. Right, the lights will go out after about 10 or 15 minutes, and they have
My
to like,
office
walk
at
around.
MITRE used to be that way. At least 5 times a day, I would have to go like this to get my lights to come back on.
And then the other thing that I personally am kind of interested in is I think they've got a makerspace there, and they've got a 3D printing. And I don't know if it's shared with the robotics class, but anyways, there's some I've got a son in a robotics class and another son in the 3D printing class, and they seem to be doing some pretty neat stuff.
They definitely, when I went on the open house, they definitely had some multiple, I would say, maker spaces. Couldn't actually see them from the floor because they're on the ground floor, but there's on the second floor, there's glass windows and you can look into them from above, and they were pretty impressive looking. I think the other thing I would add to your tour suggestions, Glenn, for Charlie and Dave, who have had kids that graduated, one of the nicest touches I thought was they carried over some of the murals that used to be in the
Oh,
cafeteria of the old building,
That's right.
and they put them in I think they must have photoed them somehow. And
Yeah,
they
my
repainted
understanding
them.
is they took pictures of them and then reprinted them. So they're
So
not
that
the
they did a
original,
really
but
nice job on that. They're like on the left as you walk in.
I
the
really
front
like
door.
that too. I thought that was a really nice touch, a little reminder of the old school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. And Glenn, thanks for setting that
sure.
up.
yes, thank
Hey,
you.
hey, Paul, I had one other topic. I mean, with, obviously, the log for shell, issues top of mind for a lot of us. I'm wondering if
Yeah.
it'd be possible to kind of get a readout of, what was the town's response? How do we do incident management? What was the procedures we took to ensure that we weren't vulnerable, et cetera, et cetera. I just think it's a great, it's a great exercise for, well, okay, this is the worst vulnerability ever to hit the streets, right? So what was our response? How do we feel about it? And just sort of just a general readout from the town on it. Or I mean, I guess the other side of it is, are there ongoing activities that we can be a part of and we can help with?
Yeah. Everybody knows what Phil is talking about, this vulnerability, Log4Shell, Apache vulnerability that popped up last week.
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
agree. Obviously it potentially could be a vector. I mean, we've already seen ransomware groups leveraging it, so it could be a very easy vector for access.
Yep.
It raises a lot of what are really thorny questions for any organization around software supply chain and
Mhm.
bill of materials and a lot of stuff that very few people are really doing, but
Right.
seem to be maybe things that people are going to need to start doing more of. Yeah, what would be do you think, so for our next meeting, maybe get a little report out from Dave and Steve, or shoot them an
Well,
email preemptively and say, hey, are you on top of this? And
I think
what can you
both.
tell us?
I think maybe both. There's a lot of expertise in this room, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This virtual room, right? So do they need any of us, right?
Yeah,
And then the other part is, when the dust settles, can we get a readout on it?
yeah,
Right?
yeah. I will shoot them an email and copy Glenn and Dave, and relay anything that we find, and maybe we could just do just put it on our agenda for next month as well to do a little bit of a hopefully not a post-mortem, but
Right.
an analysis. I think this is actually gonna
Post-incident reporting.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I think this is gonna be a long-running issue.
It will be.
And so even a few weeks from now, I think it'll probably still be quite current. But I think you're right. It probably would be good to just sort of reach out and say, hey, can we help you? What's going on? Are
Right.
there areas of concern?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
I don't know what the other members think, but to me, this is
I mean, my
good
guess
learning
is,
event across
obviously,
the board.
yeah, Belmont doesn't do software development really. So
No.
I'm guessing for us, it's all about, trying to assess
Matching.
where our vendors are and what
Exactly.
they're doing. Yeah. And
That's enough of a chore in itself, right?
yeah.
Tracking down every single, going back to the, the consolidation thing. I mean, the simpler, the lower our, profile on usage of software that's internet facing in some capacity or another, is, the less the chore is to make sure that a huge vulnerability like this is patched throughout everything that we have. So, I mean, what are we doing? What are we thinking? Has this changed the way we think about how we're buying software? Is it whatever? I mean, there's a lot here, really, right?
Yeah,
It's pretty massive.
it is.
Yep.
It is. Yeah. And
Well,
I
I don't know that it would affect Belmont. I was talking to a CISO today who
Mhm.
said, and then there's the things that are that you can't patch from vendor stuff because somebody took the library and compiled it into code. and you're actually running binary things on various files throughout your enterprise. This guy's a CISO for a large airline.
Right.
And they've got all sorts of custom code, and it's like, SBOM, it's like doesn't help because it's their own stuff, and they have to, and they've discovered that people were were to be faster about it, instead of dynamically linking it in, they were including it in their own code builds and just compiling it in.
Right. This is the journey inside the sausage factory, so to speak.
Yeah.
How software is getting made.
Good for business at my former employer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was remembering back, it's ironic that in the early days of the demos there, which was probably, at this point, 12 years ago, we used Log4j as a regular demo for something that got embedded in like just about every app. And we're like, here's how you can find it if it's there. So
Yeah.
they're probably getting a few calls this week, last week.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I've remained very friendly with MITRE's CISO. I have been very hesitant to call him up and say, "Hey, Bill, how you doing?"
He's
Had a good time
he's
for-
busy these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Any guys-
guys.
Yep.
Okay, I will do that, Phil, and I'll copy you guys in. And any other business?
It just on that note, quickly, Paul, I've got, as you know, my company does threat analysis, and there is a write-up from about 2-3 days ago about the Log4Shell exploit, or vulnerability/exploit. And what, if you're interested, I can forward that to you, and you could just include it and say, hey, this is something from Glenn's company. They know, I
That would be great.
And you can just say, this is something about it. There's plenty of written information out there, but in the sense that we all have access to materials that could be helpful, here's something from Glenn's company.
Yeah,
that'd be great. Yeah, and obviously Recorded Future is like, right. If anybody knows how it's being leveraged or exploited or used, it's you guys. So that's great.
All right, so I'll just send it to you, and then you can go ahead and include that in the message.
Thanks. Okay, guys, it's always a pleasure meeting with you.
Likewise.
Nice.
It is. Let's schedule our next meeting, and then I'll let you guys get on with your evening.
Haven't we decided that we're going to try and meet
third Thursday? Yeah. In fact, I
Thursday.
meant to for this meeting, but we'll have to do it in the first meeting in January to just approve. I would love to just pre-approve the agendas for the year and just send them all to the town clerk, so we don't have to have Dave have to pester me every month to do it. He would appreciate the break, and so would I. And as long as we're sticking to this cadence, which I think we've been pretty good about, we should probably just do that. So with that in mind, third Thursday in January is the 20th by my count.
Yep.
Should we just that work for everybody?
As far as I can tell.
Yep. So let's just slot it in there. And obviously, if there are issues and we don't think we're going to be able to have a quorum, then we can move it. Okay.
So that's
And
Thursday, January 20th, right?
Yeah, and I will block out some basically placeholder agendas for the year, and we can just vote to, look over those and vote to send them into Ellen en masse in January. Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious. I was looking for something of a placeholder agenda for this meeting. I couldn't find it along with the notice. Was that me, or was it the notice?
I think it was you. If you scroll down beneath the Zoom info, the agenda should be there.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much.
We need a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
We do need a motion to adjourn.
So
Everybody
moved.
have a great holiday.
Second.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Hey, have a great holiday, everybody.
Have a great holiday.
Yeah,
You
Merry
too.
Christmas,
Happy New
everyone.
Have a
Year.
great one.
Thanks.
Stay
Yep.
safe.
Ciao.
Actually, we'll see you tomorrow. What are you guys talking about?
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah, right.
Yeah, for any of you I don't see tomorrow.
Right.
Wear your elf caps tomorrow down to the high school.
Well, Glenn, I didn't respond. I'm going to try to make it, by the way. So
Oh, that'd be
hope-
great,
hope
Phil.
to see you
Too
all.
late, buddy. No, I'm joking.
I didn't respond and
Hey, you know, actually what this is, in many respects, this is the first time most of us, not all of us, will have met at some